And I'd just like to say that when I'm not playing Xbox with my mate Thor, I really like to listen to my favourite podcast, Pop Culture Pasta. Hey, Doug! Doug! Oh, that's right, Doug's dead.
Pop Culture Pasta.
So, Cody, I was online, as one does.
As one does.
And you sent me a tweet.
The tweets.
By the way, Twitter's a mess.
A hot mess express.
I'm sorry. I'm loving it. I love Twitter's chaos. It makes me happy.
Yeah, it's something.
Like people are genuinely upset about the whole Twitter thing. And Elon Musk is just a very rich troll. That's like what he loves doing. And so, like, it's funny because there's all these stories. There's all these people like behind the scenes that are saying Elon Musk and his buddies are like in the control room every day. And I'm just like, yeah, why do you think he bought Twitter? He literally bought it to just troll everybody and burn it down. That's what's happening. And now all those check marks, everyone's got check marks now. Have you seen that? Have you noticed that? $8 a month, bro. I'm thinking about getting one for Pop Culture Pastor.
I mean, I don't know if it will help anyone take off, really, but sure, go for it.
Yeah, check mark. $8 a month. Anyways.
Then we can take our photo of having a check mark and then stop paying the $8.
Look, Mom, we made it. And then, turn it off. That's too much. Anyways, you sent me this tweet. And it says this. The Oculus founder. Do you know what the Oculus is? You surely do, since you sent me the tweet.
I am young enough to know what an Oculus is.
So the Oculus is the virtual reality thing. Mm-hmm. Is that any good? Do they make any good games for that yet? Because I remember at first it was kind of worthless, right?
So one of my coworkers has one, and she really enjoys it, but some of them are kind of scary.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So the Oculus founder claims he's created a VR headset that will kill the user if they die in the game.
Oh my goodness.
Is that a thing we've been wanting? I don't understand. Why would you even why would you even design that? What?
I mean, that is like the really cheesy idea that they make like the D-rated movies, like horror movies.
It sounds like something out of The Running Man.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a bad sci-fi.
He said this, quote, "The idea of tying your real life to your virtual avatar has always fascinated me. You instantly raise the stakes to the maximum level and force people to fundamentally rethink how they interact with the virtual world and the players inside it. This man must be stopped. This man shouldn't have money."
Like, so in my mind, I'm thinking about Minecraft. Someone that's just wanting to build, and then like they get attacked by like zombies or whatever, and then they die in the game, and then they die in real life, and all they wanted to do was build with basically Legos.
Yeah, don't do this. We have a broken world. Why would you introduce brokenness into the video game world? That doesn't make any sense.
I get upset when Madden glitches. I don't need it being tied to my real life.
I can remember playing like the original Zelda. You'd be playing all night, pulling an all-nighter on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And you'd been like doing all this stuff, find the Master Sword, and then it would start that red light blinking.
Oh, yeah.
And you would throw the Nintendo Entertainment System across the room because you knew it was all gone, all your progress.
Forever.
Because you couldn't save in the middle of a game. That wasn't actually, you could. You just didn't.
And I saw online that, was it Mario? It was one of the retro Nintendo games that if you hit like the correct button sequence, you wouldn't have to restart everything. You would just restart at the level you were at.
I saw that, and it was always hidden in the game, and nobody never knew.
Yeah, so bananas.
That's bananas. And then now this guy wants to make it that if you get stomped on by Bowser, you die in real life.
I'm not here for that.
No, I'm not. Who's here for that? Who's reading this by the founder of Oculus, who says, hey, by the way, I created a VR headset that'll kill you if you die in the game. Who read that and been like, oh, hot stuff. I need to get a hold of that. Who? Who's going to buy that?
Rich people.
The dude in the horror movie Saw? The Saw franchise guy?
Here, you like to play video games. Play one for your life.
Nope. No, I'm not good enough at video games anymore. That'd be a terrible proposition.
Like,
unless it was like something I couldn't die at, like Farmville.
NBA 2K.
NBA 2K.
That's the only game you could ever play.
The only way NBA 2K is going to kill me is if I have to play at the Oculus and actually have to run and jump. Then I might die. Like Dave had a heart attack because he was playing against the Pacers. And he just, they had his number. He just got a little too worked up. Collapsed right there on the floor.
It happens.
Yeah, it's terrible. This is a terrible idea. And then this is how, you're right, every cheesy, bad sci-fi horror movie ever started in the 80s.
Yeah.
What if? Like, you can just hear, like, it sounds like a bad movie idea. You see a bunch of Hollywood types around the table be like, I got it. What if it's a video game, but it kills the players?
I mean,
that's a terrible idea.
Like, the amount of lawsuits, and then, like, you'd have to worry about those that are suffering with mental health. And there's like so many issues that I don't even know why you would release this story in this time period. Now, if you released it on April Fool's Day, then it'd be like, oh, that's a silly joke.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't even know why this dude said that. Like, what? This lets you in on his psyche, and you're just like, no, bro, that's kind of scary.
Like it.
That's kind of scary. And now nobody wants to be your friend.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not purchasing your Oculus now.
Yeah, we love you in Christ, but also stay away from my kids. That's
and
weird.
Don't gift me an Oculus.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on the VR set. All right, man. You're listening to Pop Culture Pastor Podcast. Dave and Cody here.
The podcast for the youth and the youthful at heart.
Oh, that was good. That was like real voiceover stuff right there.
Save it.
Clip it. Clip that. Producer. Clip that. Yeah, we're here for another Be Kind Rewind because Cody had never seen the movie Creed.
It's a movie.
So we're here to talk about Creed. But in order to talk about an older movie, we need to go to the Geek Phone and talk to our friend Sam, who knows cinema. So, Cody, to the Geek Phone!
To the Geek Phone.
All right, we're here on the Geek Phone with Sam, our friend Sam. How are we doing today, Sam?
I'm doing just fine. The weather, this being one of the last good days, just ended.
Yeah, good days. I don't know. I'm ready for it to get cool. I'm tired of this stuffy stuff.
Yeah, well, now that you mention it, the holidays are coming around, and we kind of need that tinsel weather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. The reason we're talking, Sam, is you are our cinephile, resident geek cinephile. You know stuff about movies. Today, we're doing a Be Kind Rewind, and we're talking about the 2015 blockbuster Creed. What do you know about Creed, Sam?
Well, what I know about Creed is that it is a spiritual, well, not spiritual, but sort of a resurgence, not a reboot, but a resurgence of the Rocky franchise. It is what I would say a passing of the baton to the next generation of boxers and heroes and underdogs, so to speak. We have with us Michael B. Jordan, who is taking the helm as Creed's son, who decides to take on the helm that Rocky had taken on. And that's what's interesting about this sort of franchises like this. You don't just retire the gloves, you simply pass it on to the next generation, so to speak.
Yeah, it's sort of like the superhero movies, the MCU. When Iron Man and Captain America move on, you just replace them with new heroes.
Yes, as well as Batman Beyond, if you've ever heard of that.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, that's the same thing. You simply pass it on to the next generation. You don't just retire it for good. You just pass it on.
Yeah, I never really thought of Rocky, these movies, that way, but it very much is. It very much is that.
Yes, it definitely is. Now, one scene that really stood out was this one long take of the first big battle that Adonis Creed takes on with the person. You as a viewer are thrust into the fight scene, and you feel like you are actually donning the gloves yourself.
Yeah, the fight scenes in this movie are fantastic, and it makes me wonder, which I'm going to talk about this with Cody later, this is the way, if they ever were going to retell the Rocky story, this is probably the way it would look. The fight scenes are amazing. They do them in these large one take shots that just, you're right, makes you feel like you're there.
Yes, it definitely does. And as an added and I really do think that it's kind of how to do a reboot right, as you say, sort of how to do it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When it comes.
So there's like, so there's the regular reboot, which is kind of a retelling, right? Where they take all the same characters and they change the actors and they just say, we're just going to tell the same story in a different way. Then there's something called a soft reboot, which is kind of what this is, where they're not retelling the story. They're continuing it with different characters, right?
Yes, it's passing the mantle, so to speak.
Yeah, which is like, it's interesting to me where movies are, where cinema is, because like we didn't do this back in the 80s. It wasn't an old enough medium yet, I guess. We still had a bunch of original stories we want to tell, but now we like to cycle back and retell some of our favorites.
Yes, definitely. We definitely love to do that. A good example I hear that's also a kind of a soft-ish reboot is Nope, Jordan Peele film. If you watch it carefully, it is very, very similar. The plot and structure is very similar to that of Jaws, if you take a moment to watch it.
Oh my goodness, you're blowing my mind now, Sam. I had never thought about it, but you're right. You're right.
Because well, like instead of an ocean, it's a plateau, and instead of a shark, it's an alien, and instead of the gun, it's the camera that they're using.
But it's the same concept, even the way they destroy it.
Yeah,
so
even how they destroy
Jaws into eating something, and then they blow it up. Yeah,
like when they say "smile, you son of a."
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right.
But it's the same thing, like smile for the camera, that sort of thing.
I had never thought of that, Sam. Never thought of it. That's why we bring you on, though. You hit us with the knowledge bombs.
Yes. But anyway, the truth is, Creed also has a killer soundtrack.
Oh, see, I love the score for this movie. Ludwig van Göransson. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, he also did, I think. No, wait. Yeah, didn't he do The Mandalorian, or was that someone else?
I think he does The Mandalorian as well. He's like kind of one of the young guard of the movie scores and TV scores. Yeah. And The Mandalorian is great.
Almost like a protege to John Williams, almost.
Yeah, very good. So you liked the score of this movie?
I liked the soundtrack, the musical selections, if you will, that they used.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it's really interesting because even though he lost the main title, it's kind of like you would expect that because that's what Rocky went through in it. But it's still like Adrian and all that stuff.
Yeah. It is. It's interesting that he loses by decision. That's what happens in this movie. No, I mean, spoiler alert, but it mirrors the original. The
boxers are neck and neck in this. They are neck and neck.
Yeah, and he's actually saved the other fighter because he gets up. He manages to get to his feet before he gets to the 10 count after the bell is rung.
Right, and even the ending scene, which is obviously an homage to running up the steps and such. Yeah, it is done in a very humble sort of it honors that scene in a very humble way, very humble.
Yeah, we're going to talk about this later in the pod, but it is a really cool thing because we're not used to watching our heroes get old and get weak. And in this, Ryan Coogler, who helped write the screenplay, makes this decision to tell this story where our hero, Rocky, not only does he get sick and he's weak, but he does something very un-Rocky like. He wants to give up. So it's a very interesting, and he needs the young man's urging, his mentee, he needs his urging to make him keep going. And I thought that was a powerful testament to being a hero, but also being human.
Yes, kind of, because like I said, this is a story about passing the baton to the next generation, so to speak.
Very good. Very good stuff. Sam, hit me with one more piece of trivia. You got one more? Something that I wouldn't know.
Well, one thing that's interesting, I would assume, is that unlike other sorts of stories about heroes, the Rocky franchise isn't about this daring perfection hero that is someone who can do no wrong and is divine among everything. He is human. He has weaknesses. He has imperfections. He is a relatable character in many ways. He makes mistakes. He makes unsmart decisions. He is human, unlike others.
Yeah.
And this is the same thing for Michael B. Jordan's character, Creed. As a young boy, he was in juvenile hall and he got himself into some fights. And then he was picked up by his mother who encouraged him to continue going on with his life and making a more cleaner path in his world. And this is kind of one of the things about the anti-hero, so to speak. The anti-hero is more relatable. And that's what I think makes Creed, just like Rocky, so relatable, because he is going through the same gritty upbringing as he was, almost. Without a father figure, he was given that sort of short end of the stick in life. And that is what makes, I think, Creed such a wonderful soft reboot, perhaps the best soft reboot ever made.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. I agree with you. I think this is a very, very good movie. I think it continues the franchise well, although it does make some amendments, which we'll get into later in the pod. Cody had never seen it, and he has a love-hate relationship with the Rocky franchise, and it all hinges on Rocky 5, but we're going to get into that. And so, I think this is brilliant, and I'm glad we agree with that. Sam, knowledgeable as always. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Well,
we'll talk to you later, buddy.
All right.
Okay. Welcome back. We just got off the geek phone with Sam. He gave us some cinema. He broke it down.
Broke all the walls down around this franchise.
Yeah, he broke it down. We're in the Rocky franchise, a beloved franchise for both Cody and I.
Very beloved.
This movie came out 2015, directed by Ryan Coogler.
The Cougs.
Yeah, directed by Ryan Coogler. And it's got a solid 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. And so we're here to talk about the movie Creed. I hope you guys have seen it because, first of all, if you haven't, what are you doing?
We're about to spoil it.
Yeah, we're spoiling the nerd out of this. It's 7 years old, so you should have seen it by now. But if you haven't, go watch it.
I just saw it this very day. So
yeah, you're going to have to go rent it. It's like $2.99 on Amazon, but it's well worth $2.99. And these days, $3, most things are worth that.
It's actually $3.99.
What?
Yeah.
What? That's crazy.
There's not like a cheaper rate for the lower quality.
No good. What are you doing, Bezos? Okay. we start off with just a kind of a broad take on the movie, and I'll get you started by asking you a question.
Okay.
What were your expectations going in? Because you are a Rocky guy. You loved the old Rocky movies.
So the thing is, with having 7 years from its release date to now, I have had people around me that are big Rocky fans. And most of them said, oh my goodness, if you like any of the Rockies, you're going to love this. One of the greatest speeches in cinematic history happens in this movie, Cody.
It does?
It does. And when we actually get into the heart of the review, remind me to tell you what that person said was the greatest speech in cinematic history. But I had one person really close to me that said, I fell asleep during it. And Michael B. Jordan might have been the worst thing for the whole Rocky franchise. And so that was said to me. So I came in on edge, and I didn't know what to expect. So
okay. Because I'll tell you where I was at. I remember seeing this in the theater, and I hadn't heard much about it because I went opening weekend, and I think my expectations were pretty low because, for obvious reasons. We're going to come back to this several times tonight, but Cody has a problem.
I have so many problems.
And that problem is Rocky V.
Rocky V and Balboa.
Yeah. Well, okay. But your problem's not really with Rocky Balboa, the movie Rocky Balboa. Your problem is that Rocky V tells a story that makes Rocky Balboa not make sense in any subsequent movie after. Really. Right? That's your problem.
It's impossible. It's impossible to go anywhere after Rocky V.
And what I've told you, and we're going to revisit this conversation, I'm sure. What I've told you is you got to kind of, this movie does not reference Rocky V or Rocky Balboa in any way. So you're basically going into this movie with the understanding, even though they didn't tell you to, the understanding that Rocky V and Rocky Balboa don't exist. You're going, this is the Rocky from Rocky IV.
And I say shenanigans because it exists. I've seen it.
Well, okay, but we talked about this on the last episode. I mean, the Silmarillion exists too, but the Tolkien estate says that's not canon.
Sorry, in the Rocky bundle pack, they release 5.
Well, of course they do, because, they're making money.
Okay, so then it's recognized, it's legitimate, it's canon. It's there.
I bet Sylvester Stallone would argue with that because he doesn't have much love for the producers and the guys that actually own the rights to it, which are the Winklers.
Henry?
No, not Henry. Anyways, we'll come back to that. My expectations were low. I didn't have giant expectations for this movie when I went and saw it. Your expectations were obviously low. You've heard mixed things about it. And so we both went into the movie with similar things. Me way back when, you today.
Yeah.
Literally today.
Literally.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, then let's just get into what's good. Let's talk about what's good. Do you want me to go first? Because I have a lot.
Okay. You go on about it.
The opening boxing match in Mexico. Everything about that. First of all, I will say the fighting scenes are incredible in this movie. They do a lot of one-take shots. There's several moments in the boxing matches where they don't make cuts. Mm-hmm. It's just one long take as the camera moves around. The opening boxing match in Mexico is like that. He's like down there taking hole-in-the-wall matches, and he knocks the dude out. And as the official's counting, you can see him in the background like chewing off the tape to get the tape off his gloves because he knows the fight's over. That's a great way to be introduced to him and to understand that, like, okay, he's got some skills. Mm-hmm. He's blessed with some genetics, right? He knows how to fight.
Yes.
So like that immediately right out the gate, I thought that was great. It's great character development so that, like, I don't know, one of the things that was cool about Rocky, but then at the same time is a bummer is you don't see why Rocky is a brawler to begin with, right? You get that backstory with Creed, with Adonis.
Okay.
You get these little clues in the storytelling. Anyways, I love that scene. What's good? What's good in it?
So I did enjoy, I guess, the overarching that although he has the genetics, it's been a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a common theme throughout the movie too, is the way he's dealing with the absence of a father, and also that he can't really get away from him. Right.
Yeah. Although when you first meet him, he doesn't even know he has a father.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's interesting. That part resonated with me as well, because it in some way, like my parents got divorced when I was really young. I don't know that I was really fair to my dad in the way I thought about him as I got older. And as such, I didn't want to be interested in anything my dad was interested in. Right. I didn't want to be into the same things, but it's interesting that Adonis is interested in the thing that he has some very harsh feelings for his dad, but also he wants to do the thing his dad did. And so right away, the struggle is with, being that, having these similarities, but also having harsh feelings.
Yeah.
I mean, he takes his mother's name for most of the movie.
He does.
And I just found all of that very fascinating and interesting. I also liked whenever a new boxer was introduced, these graphics would show up on the screen.
Yeah, it gave you at least some connectivity to, like, okay, this isn't just some random guy from Joe's gym that he's fighting now. It's, this guy is pound for pound the best fighter in the world, and this guy's number 4.
Yeah, it was a super fresh, kind of interesting way to, but not intrusive way to throw in a little context. Yeah, like you said, hey, this isn't just some slug from the gym. This guy is, ranked number 3 in the world. He's 18-0 with 14 knockouts, right?
Yeah, and so that was helpful. And gave you at least a little connectivity to these side characters that, I mean, they're not getting a lot of stuff fleshed out for them. So now you at least know, hey, this person's supposed to be legitimate. Mm-hmm. Something I really liked from the movie, and probably was one of my favorite things, is how they actually use real sports people.
Yeah.
PTI, one of my favorite sports shows, they have both Tony and Mike talking about Apollo Creed and his legacy now that you hear about an illegitimate child, and how that all affects his legacy, but then also, is his son any good? And then there's Michael Buffer, and I'm like, oh yeah, cannot quote you because that's copyrighted, but you betcha, I'm excited.
Oh, never mind. Yeah, we don't want to get sued.
Yep.
We don't want a cease and desist letter.
Buffer's worth some bucks.
Yeah, he is. No, that you bring up a great thing that was on my list. The interspersed into the movie, the sports productions, HBO's 24/7. Behind the Fight is a big part of, the movie too. And all of that gives it this kind of realism that maybe the old Rockies didn't have. And I kept thinking as I was watching it, so I hadn't watched it in a long time. And as I was rewatching it this week, seeing all the interspersed sports things, and I thought, this is what the Rocky franchise wanted to be and didn't really have the technology and the game to really do back then. And now it's like, this is a fully realized sports movie that makes you feel like it's real. It's happening, which is the biggest hurdle for a sports movie.
Rocky walked so this movie could run.
It's very true. Very true. But it made me think, like, first of all, I'm not asking for this. It should never happen. But if they were ever going to redo the Rocky story,
You stay away from that beloved franchise.
yeah, I agree. But if they did, this is how they would do it.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it though. No, we don't need to retell that story. It's good as it is.
And also, if you want a retelling, just watch the 30 for 30 documentary about the real dude that's based on.
Oh, there's a 30 for 30?
Yeah, Chuck Wepner. He fought Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And that's who Rocky is. A lot of his characteristics are based on.
Yeah.
So,
And Apollo Creed is very much like Muhammad Ali.
so yeah, just watch that doc. There you go. I saved you the trouble rebooting.
Let's talk about Felicia Rashad.
I have her in another segment that we're going to do, but
Yeah.
she is great.
Yeah. So then let me talk about Felicia Rashad since you want to talk about her later. She plays Marianne Creed, the wife of the late Apollo Creed.
Rest in
And,
peace.
and basically
Apollo.
the adopted stepmother of Adonis, right? So the story is that Adonis is, as we said, a child of an illegitimate affair by Apollo,
Out of wedlock.
who cheated on his wife, who is played by Felicia Rashad, but she goes looking for him because his mom died. Apollo died and his mom died. As you find out, his mom has passed and he's in like a juvie home, and she seeks him out and basically adopts him. And Cody, like, look, this is not something that anybody that watched the Cosby Show didn't already know. Felicia Rashad is fantastic.
Yep.
She's so amazing. She's got like 5 minutes of screen time in this movie total, and she owns every one of them.
Claire Huxtable.
Oh my goodness. She's a treasure.
And a huge advocate for any black actor or actress and of HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. So, yeah, I do respect her talents and her passions
She is wonderful. There will be no Felicia Rashad slander
on this show.
on this pod. She's amazing, and every time she's on screen in this movie, from the moment like she shows up at the juvie and she's explaining to him who she is, I mean, you're just locked into her. There's so much gravitas with her, but she's also playing like this kind of, you can tell she's still kind of hurt. She's got tenderness in there where she's hurt by Apollo's infidelity, but also the overwhelming care that she has for Adonis, a child who's not hers. Oh man. She's so good. So good.
I wonder how Carl feels about this.
Carl Weathers?
Yes, like we have made your beloved character who died at the hands of the evil Russian now an adulterous son of a gun.
I mean, you know, athletes, it happens. Athletes have
It
falls
does
and grace all the
happen.
time.
And so, like, it's not an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
But, like, now we've added this flaw to the character of Apollo. And, like, the way Sylvester Stallone talks about this franchise and how it's really his, like, Carl might feel like we should not have done that to Apollo.
Yeah. Well, you know, and to be fair to Sylvester, to Sly, he does have immense love for his co-stars. Like he's good friends with Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming Carl Weathers. He's probably pretty tight with Carl.
I'd be friends with Carl.
I would too. He's all right. Let's talk about Sly Stallone. Sylvester Stallone, who is, I believe, nominated for a supporting actor Oscar for this movie. Yep. Don't make that noise. Why are you making that noise? Are you not into his character in this movie? Because it's sort of amazing. Oh, dude. I don't know what you're doing right now.
Like, he's not Mickey. He's not.
He's not supposed to be Mick.
Yeah, and like, no. Like, again, Rocky 5, we can't carry on a conversation.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, let's get this out of the way. Let's go ahead and talk about this now.
In which Miss Rashad identifies why she doesn't want her son fighting because she doesn't want him to have brain damage.
Oh, she went farther.
She did.
She's like, you don't know how many times I had to wipe his rear end.
Yes.
And she didn't say rear end.
She didn't. And I'm like, at the end of Rocky 5, we are to believe Sylvester Stallone, this is him.
That was even that part. I was like, that was too much specific information, Miss Creed.
But no, I mean, so honestly, if, like you said, if they were to be able to retcon out 5 and Balboa,
Yeah.
4 would be like the ultimate ending. It'd be like John Elway retiring after winning his second Super Bowl. Like, you're going out on top. MJ walking away at number 6. But they didn't do it. And it's like MJ returning to the Wizards. So Rocky 5 exists, just like Michael Jordan going to the Wizards. And it was just as bad of a result.
Okay. Well, I'm choosing to ignore Rocky 5.
Can't. I won't.
That's okay. Hey, and you can choose to do that. I can't disagree with that. If that ruins, like, listen, Rocky 5 ruined my experience of Rocky 2 when it came out. It's just a bad movie. It's terrible.
It is.
So bad.
Really, really bad.
In fact, I can't adequately explain how much I hated that movie. I hated it. I wanted to throw it in the trash immediately. And I think my brain did that. When Rocky Balboa comes out, I'm like, oh, great. We can move on from Rocky 5 and just ignore that it ever happened. I am what a therapist might say, in denial. I'm just blocking it out. It was like something bad that happened to me.
Yes, you were traumatized by it.
Yeah. So, yeah, Rocky 5 is really, 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 really bad. It's a really awful movie.
So if I was to try to block that out and judge Sylvester Stallone's acting in this, it was okay.
Oh, man, it was so good. So he gets to play an old, broken Rocky, which is okay. This is weird. It gives us this whole. We don't usually get the movie where the hero gets old, right? We get the movie. The hero rides off into the sunset, and that's the last we see him. But here, he gets to play this old, kind of broken Rocky. In a lot of ways, he's broken. He's kind of running away from life. And he plays that so well. And even when he's being kind of an idiot, there's something about him that makes him so sympathetic. And you find yourself, I found myself still cheering for him, still rooting for him in life.
At times when he's talking, what I'm hearing in my head is Tony Danza.
Now, come on.
That's what I'm hearing.
The Academy recognized his acting in this movie. It was wonderful. Like, I thought about this movie deeply when it came out. And I think part of the reason people dug the movie is we aren't used to seeing the hero get old or give up. He's giving up at some point in the movie. Heroes in pop culture, they just kind of keep going.
When he gives up, that's the greatest speech or cinematic talking point ever, according to Jackson Chauncey, who is not here to defend it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, I related to like feeling sad, like, oh my goodness, if something happened to my wife,
Yeah.
I would definitely relate to it, although like when he's like I don't know how to describe it, like if there was a bucket, and I'm like, get out of here. Who wrote this?
Oh, come on. Ryan Coogler wrote it, first of all.
Yes.
And it's a great look at grief and pain. We meet a Rocky who's lost everything. He's lost so much, he's ready to pack it in, which is so engaging because it's nothing like Rocky. This is a guy who kept walking into the Russians' robotic punches, man, just getting hit over and over and over again. But here, He's the hero who's broken down and needs encouragement from a young mentee. And there's something so human in that. And it makes him so identifiable. This once like amazing, like underdog who became cartoonish by Rocky IV. Like Rocky IV's fight scenes are just them throwing haymakers and landing them on each other.
Oh, yeah.
No human being could go through that, but it turns that guy into someone really human. And I think it gives people hope of what human connections can do for us, because these two find each other in the movie, and it like they both flourish off of this human relationship. And it's a great depiction of what connections to other humans can do, because Rocky's disconnected. He's lost everybody and he's not interested in any more connections.
Well, so is Michael B. Jordan. He's not connected to anyone. He's had to do it all by himself.
I know. So he connects with Rocky. They start to really care for each other. So much to the point, it's like, if I fight, you fight. Remember? Because he's got cancer. He's not going to do the chemo. And finally, he's the one who can make Rocky get the chemo. It's like, if I fight, you fight. And
there's a whole scene that I feel undoes this story and was really unnecessary.
Admittedly, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. There's a line in there by the doctor, and I was going to save this for things that aren't so good. But there's a line in there where the doctor's like, he doesn't even wait for the doctor to say, this is very doable. Like, yeah. She presents it as like, they should have presented it as more of a like, no, this is serious. You need to get chemo immediately. Instead, they kind of offset it with the doctor saying, no, you just do a little chemo. You'll be fine. They present it. And he's very closed off to it, which makes it kind of weird. You're just kind of like, and the doctor really just like gives up right away.
Yeah.
that wasn't so great.
That didn't work. And again, there's a whole scene that
I wouldn't say it didn't work. It's just kind of clunky.
Didn't work.
Oh, come on. Sylvester Stallone's great in this movie. I loved him. And I really gravitated towards any time he was on screen in this idea of like, look, we all kind of looked at our fathers in the way we looked at Rocky. Didn't you? When you were growing up, couldn't your dad do anything?
Yeah, oh yeah.
He was strong enough to beat up anybody. He could do anything. And then when your dad gets old, there's something in that's identifiable. When we see an old Rocky, we're like, oh man, he's not as strong as he used to be. He looks human to me now. And there was something fascinating about that.
I'll say any time after Apollo or after Creed moves in, that Sylvester Stallone's character really picks up. So
yeah, you're right. And I think the movie in general really kind of picks up after you get past all the, Rocky's kind of keeping him at arm's length, doesn't want anything to do with him, blah, blah, blah. But then, once they're set as a unit, man, the movie just flies. Another thing I loved about it, it's a love letter to Philadelphia, man. I mean, from John's, that's a John. This phone's a John. This mic's a John. Like that whole sequence where she's kind of explaining some Phillyisms to him at the Philly cheesesteak place.
I'm just saying, who else could do that?
Who could do that?
Tony Danza.
So clearly what Cody needed was a Tony Danza cameo of some sort. They should have had him on TV in the background somewhere. Like just a random TV in Rocky's apartment playing Who's the Boss reruns.
Or that movie where he plays is it a kicker? Like the guy that was a trash man and then goes to be like a Philadelphia Eagle.
And why not? Just put the Mark Wahlberg football movie in there as well. The dude who played for the Eagles. Throw it all in there.
Yeah.
Why not? It was a love letter to Philly. It really was. It was. I also thought that was well done. There's a certain charm to it. Like when he's running through the streets and you got all the guys on dirt bikes and four wheelers, which is like a thing in inner city Philadelphia. Did you know that?
I didn't know that because that's a thing in Southeast Kansas.
Yeah, we're all about the off-road utility vehicles here, but apparently they are in Philly too.
So hey, there's not that much separating us.
I think what we learn is that the Hicks from our neck of the woods would probably get along just fine with the folks in inner Philadelphia.
Yeah,
maybe.
Like there was no Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reference.
Nope.
And I needed some Will Smith.
Yeah. They walk up the steps at the end of the museum. You see the Rocky statue. So Philly, man, is a prime player in this movie. just kind of in the background.
It's kind of like what M. Night does, because all of M. Night's movies take place in Philadelphia or around Philadelphia, with even the one about the village. Yeah, even that takes place in a national forest park right outside Philadelphia.
Yeah, and so but even the old Rocky movies, I don't remember the love for Philadelphia feeling like it did in this movie. It's a lot like Stephen King books with Maine.
Yeah.
It's always a background player.
I guess with looking at Rocky, the franchise with eyes watching it way after it's come out, that everything in Rocky I just associate with Philadelphia because it has informed me of what Philadelphia is like.
Yeah. Okay.
So
do you have anything else that was good? Because I have a few more.
I got bad.
Rocky's conversations, quote unquote conversations with Adrian, his deceased wife. I just thought that was very sweet. It didn't feel fake to me.
Yeah.
It felt the first time we get to one of those parts of the movie where he's got the chair and the tree.
I was like, how has no one stolen this?
Because they knew it was Rocky. Rocky's a god there. Okay, so there's a little thing in the movie after he's moving in with Rocky. He's already met the girl that ends up being his girlfriend. And he's moving, and he's like, yeah, I didn't have time to talk to you, but I'm moving in with my unk.
Yeah.
He keeps calling his uncle. And she's like, why didn't you tell me your uncle was Rocky Balboa? Everybody knows him. He's like the guy in Philly.
Well, I mean,
and so that chair wouldn't have got moved. They would have known it was Rocky's.
Maybe.
But the conversations he has with Adrian and Paulie, who are buried right next to each other in the cemetery, I felt like they were really sweet, that it wasn't fake. I thought the evolution of Adonis and Bianca's relationship was also well done. There's these little heart moments that they could have felt forced, but I think they just work.
There definitely was great moments.
Yeah.
There is.
This movie really launches a couple people, which I'm sure we'll get into later, but Ryan Coogler.
This unravels.
You think it unravels?
I think it unravels in scenes. And
Tessa Thompson, who plays Bianca, who this is like her first big movie.
Way to go, Tessa.
Yeah. I mentioned the fight scenes. Ludwig von Göransson, who does the score. What'd you think of the score, the music?
It didn't feel as prominent to me as the other Rocky movies. I know they reuse.
They did it intentionally.
Yeah, but for me, the score really wasn't anything.
Oh man, I loved it.
To write home about.
I bought this album shortly after seeing the movie in the theaters way back in 2000. What was it, 15?
Yeah.
And I love the score. I love the music. And when that music hits at the beginning of the last round, when he comes out of the corner after Rocky's given him the speech, he's like, "You're a Creed." And then he gets up out of the corner and it starts to dun, 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 dun. I remember people literally stood up in the theater and started clapping because what they did was it was a nice little trick. There was no hint of Rocky's music in that movie anywhere until that moment.
Yeah, but my takeaway from the score is there was nothing memorable like the Rocky music.
Yeah.
So
honestly,
the score could have been tossed in the dumpster for me.
Name the last score you thought was as iconic as anything that came out in the 80s. I've got a movie in my head that I think is the only movie outside of the 80s that would immediately come to mind. But name any score you think is what that was iconic as Superman, Star Wars, Rocky,
Dark Knight trilogy. Even Rises, the weird chanting thing was iconic.
But it's because you love those movies. Is the music iconic, or is it because it's that the love of that movie is so entrenched in your heart?
I would also say Jurassic Park.
That's the movie I was thinking of. I think Jurassic Park is the last great soundtrack. Now, I'm not trying to make an excuse for the movies that come out now. I just don't think any of them are as memorable. Jurassic Park's a great soundtrack. Great score.
So, I mean, I think that there are some good ones. I just like score.
None of them are really as memorable.
Yeah.
Most people, if we said, hum the Dark Knight theme, wouldn't be able to do it.
Now,
But everybody can hum Indiana Jones.
they can. I think if my wife was on, she's a score person, and she would then be like, "How dare you not mention this?" And then I'd be like, "Okay."
Well,
yeah,
if you're an
that's good."
appreciator of all that, I think you would appreciate the Creed score. I liked it. I think it was great. Let's talk about what's not so good. What didn't you like it? What didn't you like about this?
Okay, so I'm going to start off really heavy.
All right.
I'm going all in on this.
Hit me.
The nightclub fight into the prison scene was stupid.
Okay.
Stupid as all get out.
I'm not immediately opposed to this idea. Go on.
Okay, so I mean, the whole reason they have the fight is just so he can be in jail. He can then be bitter, and then he can tell Rocky off. And he says to Rocky, "You're the one that's responsible for me not having a dad." Blah blah blah.
Yeah, which by the way plays well in the trailer, but you're right, in the movie it's clunky.
You have that at the beginning. That would be the time to introduce that as an issue. Not, oh, I'm going to recognize this man as a great guy and I'm going to seek him out in Philadelphia and he's going to train me and I'm going to call him Unc the whole time. And, oh, this deep, bitter hatred about him not tossing the towel for my dad. No. Just stop it. Like, if you wanted to get to the underlying problem he has, which is the lack of a father figure, you could have done that with like a scene between him and his girlfriend after she finds out who his dad was. And
that he lied. He omitted that. Yeah.
That would be the time to introduce, like, although I know he's my dad. I don't know how I feel. Like I might feel like an accident, like something that shouldn't be here. Like, get those feelings out. That would have been a perfect scene to do it. This, no. And like her going back to him after the fight that could have like completely destroyed her whole career. And
it's resolved too quickly.
It's resolved way too quickly, way too like little effort. And it makes you think that he could be someone that's prone to physical or domestic violence because of how quick he flew off the handle by being called Baby Creed.
Yeah,
so
by a dude who's like, clearly just an annoying dude.
And no one he's really connected with.
Right.
So it was ridiculous.
You ready for this?
Okay.
I agree with you. I have that's a fair criticism. I happen to think that that's the worst segment of the movie. And it's played just to create some tension between him and Rock.
Yeah. That's
it. In fact, the best part of that whole sequence is when he shows up at her door and she takes out her hearing aid. That moment is powerful. And like in that moment, and he doesn't like, the weird thing is he doesn't get angry, which I kind of kept waiting for, because now you've seen him fly off the handle, but he doesn't get angry in that moment. And then you get like your guy back. The character they've established is back in that moment. But it really devalues what just happened.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and I agree. I think that's the worst segment of the movie.
Yeah. Like I liked it when she took her hearing aid out. I liked that he kept trying to talk through the door and then she walked away from the door. Honestly, if she does not appear until the second movie, maybe then I feel better about their relationship arc. But
oh, that's interesting. Yeah. That's an interesting thought to think. What if they would have held off on the romantic storyline altogether? Like, I think Tessa Thompson's great.
Oh, she was phenomenal.
And she's really believable in that role. It takes her longer. Like, he's kind of smitten with her immediately. But she's way more realistic character in that scenario. But it's all like, it's like they didn't have enough time to flesh out that relationship fully. And then that whole segment in the middle there to create some sort of conflict between the characters. Yeah, it feels shoehorned in. It doesn't make sense as to the characters we've met so far. Like, he says something out of character. Rocky says something out of character. Like, that he shouldn't. He's like kind of harsh. He says something kind of harsh. Which he hadn't shown any. Like, Rocky... Like, name one time in the Rocky franchise where he flies off the handle and says something cruel to someone he loves, to someone he cares about. It never happens. He's like a big teddy bear in most of the franchise.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a huge issue for me for this movie.
For me, some of the things that weren't so good, the attempts at humor or any time they were trying to lighten the mood kind of were clunky.
Yeah.
Some of the dialogue there was clunky, in which case I'm like, why are you trying to lighten the mood anyways? No, let us feel the gravity of this. This is like, from a lot of this movie, you're supposed to feel that Rocky's a sad dude.
Yeah. And I mean, he's running a restaurant but yeah, with their humor, it kind of devalues his, I guess, grief.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I also, so there's some unresolved tension for me with the Rocky storyline, but I'll get to that after you finish this.
I don't have anything else to add on the what's not so good. Do you have something else?
Yeah. So
go ahead.
The Rocky story, so he gets introduced to Apollo Creed's son. He identifies himself as his son, and that just call, is her name Marianne?
Yeah, Marianne. Call Marianne.
Yeah, call Marianne.
Still the same number. He's digging at him because he hasn't talked to her since the funeral.
And so you have an unresolved, like, kind of storyline that they tease, unless they do it in the second movie, which I have not seen the second movie, of, is he going to reach out to his best bud, Apollo Creed's wife?
I think it's supposed to, like, I think what they're trying to do there was to show you the depths of sorrow that Rocky was in. Because this is another reason why I think their intention is to tell you that Rocky V and Rocky Balboa don't exist in this story. Because this man's clearly a changed man after the events of Rocky IV. And like, because in Rocky IV, they show how close the Creeds are with the Balboas. Like, they're like besties. They're hanging out. They're swimming in the pool. Their kids are friends.
And so, like, my issue is, so there's no resolved conflict there. And he, being Creed, I mean, he knows that Rocky was in the corner and that Rocky didn't throw the towel quickly. And Rocky had a secret fight with Apollo, and Rocky did this and Rocky did that. And he knows the backstory. And yet he's like the most trusting person, that Rocky is the one that's meant to help me. Rocky can do this. Rocky's who I should go to.
Yeah.
And it's like,
you just didn't buy it.
You know, because Marianne clearly talked to him about it, talked to Donnie about it, that, hey, he hasn't called. He hasn't said anything to me since the funeral. Yeah. He gave a good speech. That was about it.
Yeah.
And so there's like this level of trust that's already built up that isn't earned.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a storytelling element there too, where it feels like they're trying. So, you know, when like in a movie where they're trying to tell one story, but in telling that story, in justifying that story, it makes some other parts not make sense. So what they're trying to do is to show you that Adonis or Donnie, in his attempt to not use his father's name, which is kind of cool. It gives his character a little nobility.
Yeah.
He wants to make it on his own accord. And so he's going by his mother's maiden name or his mother's name. And he's not letting people know that he's Apollo's son. But he's also like, this is also causing him to not get a chance from gym owners. Now, here's the thing that I don't understand. Like, there's a little bit of conceit into this because who's looking at this kid? Like, and Michael B. Jordan is ripped in this movie. In fact, even in the final fight against Conlon, Pretty Boy Conlon or whatever his name is, Ricky Conlon, he makes Conlon, like Conlon looks like he just got off the couch.
Yeah.
And this is like, Conlon's a real fighter. Like, I know that this is a guy who's a real fighter in real life. I can't remember his name, the guy who plays them. Let's see here. Tony Ballou plays Pretty Ricky Conlon. But he looks like, seriously, that he hasn't been training. And Michael B. Jordan looks ripped.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, there's this part of me that's like, okay, what boxing trainer in his right mind sees this dude walk in his gym, say, I want to be trained, watch him train for any sort of minutes at all, understand he's got real skills, and is like, sorry, bro, I ain't got time for you. Now, that's not happening, is it?
And
You have to suspend some disbelief there.
especially at the gym that like boasts his dad's name all over it. Like, nepotism would be happening.
Right. But, they're trying to facilitate this story to get him to Rocky. That's the whole point of the story.
And yeah,
You're not going with it.
I'm not.
In a franchise where in Rocky 4, they're just trading haymakers and going 12 rounds. This is where you're drawing the line.
I believe the robotic butler made more so than this.
The creepy robot slave of Polly.
Yeah.
That's just creepy. Any way you cut it.
I'm just saying, I believe that to be more realistic.
All right.
Than
Let's
how we
move
got
on.
there. Yeah. So those were my two big.
All right. The first one I thought was pretty fair. The second one, I kind of look past that. It's a little too picky, in my opinion.
I'm just saying we haven't had any contact, so I am assuming Felicia Rashad is not saying nice things about Rocky.
Probably not, but she's awesome. So we give Felicia Rashad. There's no Felicia Rashad slander on this pod. The Greatest Story Ever Told Award. Biblical themes.
It was a David versus Goliath, and every kind of sense of it.
Yeah. Rocky's always that way.
Where, like, with modern eyes, we think that David versus Goliath is like the tale of an underdog, but it's actually someone that has some skill or some like talent that is overlooked by a bigger opponent.
Man, you went super biblical there.
I did.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people don't know that. The
Yes.
story of David and Goliath isn't really the story about this amazing underdog.
it's not. Being someone that can sling, you got some skill.
Yeah.
And this dude just happens to be blessed with amazing genetics and an unk named Rocky.
Yeah.
And so, like, he's skilled. He's skilled and he's an underdog. And you think the only reason this match is happening is because of nepotism and them trying to cash in on the Creed name. And then he holds his own.
Mm-hmm. There's a tiny bit of a prodigal son vibe to parts of Adonis' story. Not in the sense that, the father sense of the prodigal son story, but just in the prodigal in general, that he's a guy who's lost, man. He's out in the world. He's floated around, and boxing and who he is what he comes back to.
Yeah.
So there's the general consensus, like, because even when he's going into the last fight, he still doesn't want to take his name. And it's the gift from Marianne, Felicia Rashad, of the trunks that say Creed on the front and Johnson on the back. That sort of cements him finally saying, okay, I'm a Creed.
Yeah.
And so there's like this idea of coming back to who he really is.
Yeah, that works out. And that scene has some power to it. Mm-hmm. So I will applaud them for that one.
Yeah. I mean, you can't hate this movie, right?
No. And when we get deeper into this, I'll tell you where it ranks amongst the Rocky franchise.
Okay. Winner of the movie. Who wins this movie for you?
Claire Huxtable.
Really? You're going with Felicia Rashad?
Like, she steals all the scene time.
She's in 5 minutes of screen time. Like, this movie literally launches careers, and we're going with Felicia Rashad.
Okay, so it's a two-parter.
Okay.
So it's her and it's Cougs. Mm-hmm. And so those are my two winners. And, I mean, like, stylistically, it's a very visually appealing movie.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of creative things. And so his director abilities are on show.
Yeah.
So director Ryan Coogler, you get the big one. And then.
Yeah. This launches his career. So he had done Fruitvale Station with Michael B. Jordan. It was an indie film, but it got a lot of critical acclaim. It was like a racial drama, basically, about a guy who's wrongly accused. But then he gets to do this movie. Do you know the story about how he gets to do this movie? Probably not, since this is the first time you've ever seen it.
Enlighten me.
Okay, so Coogler grew up in Oakland, California. And with his dad, they had the Rocky series on VHS.
As one does.
And he would watch these movies with his father. And he said this in a piece on BuzzFeed. He said, he'd talk me through them, get me really emotional, really fired up, and always at the same places. The first time I saw my dad cry was probably watching a Rocky movie. Before I knew what a good movie was, what a bad movie was, I knew that this particular film had a profound effect on my father. And he starts talking about how these were the movies he loved that made him go to film school, and just this memory. And so he gets this idea in film school to write a script with him and one of his schoolmates. They start to formulate this idea for a pseudo sequel to Rocky. So he's at St. Mary's College of California, and he's encouraged by a professor who was impressed with a story he wrote about his father and suggested he give screenwriting a try. And so Coogler took the suggestion seriously and decided to give filmmaking a shot. And he loved Rocky. So he enrolls at the University of Southern California School of Cinematic Arts. He meets a guy named Aaron Covington. And in 2012, they're chatting, and they start talking about their love of Rocky. And they thought, what if we wrote a Rocky sequel? A screenplay about the son that Rocky Balboa's late great opponent, Apollo Creed, didn't know he had. And 3 years later, it becomes this movie. Ryan Coogler and his friend wrote the script for this in college, and somehow get it to the eyes of Sylvester Stallone, who loves it, right? Mm-hmm. And he did this. He wrote this, which is why, like, I'm going to tell you, you didn't know how this was all going to connect to Wakanda Forever, but here's how. In this, okay, so, oh man. So Coogler's dad was sick, right? Mm-hmm. Coogler's dad, his grandfather, his dad's dad, spent his grandmother spent 10 years battling breast cancer. Mm-hmm. And during some of the harder days, him and his grandfather, so his dad and his grandfather, would watch the Rocky movies together. And that was what made his dad want to watch it with his son, Ryan. And so Coogler kind of channeled the emotions of the story of his dad and his grandfather and the hardships they went through when his grandmother had cancer into this story about grief and loss. And like, you can see, like when this movie's at its best, when Sylvester Stallone is at his best with Rocky is at his best in this movie, it's when you see that he's struggling, that he's dealing with grief. And this is why I have high hopes for Wakanda Forever, because Ryan Coogler proves in this movie that he's actually quite adept at handling these storylines with grief and loss.
I did like, and so I should have mentioned this in the things that we do like, that you get a picture of Sylvester Stallone as Rocky with his son. Mm-hmm. And like you can tell that he's also heartbroken that his son's moved away to Vancouver, but he's also happy that he's found his place. And
well, and did you notice there's a sweet little moment there, which is like, this is where Ryan Coogler, the character of Ryan Coogler, comes through the character of Adonis Creed, Adonis Johnson, Donnie, because that picture is like kind of in the background on a lower coffee table thing, bedside table. And when Rocky starts talking about his son, and you get the feeling they're not in touch anymore, he puts that picture higher up where it's visible to him. Whereas, so there's like, in that moment, it's Adonis Creed who's showing reverence, but it's Coogler.
Yeah,
this reverence to the relationship between fathers and sons, and it's a sweet little moment when you understand the backstory. Mm-hmm. Like it's a little moment in the movie where you don't think anything of it, but it's an insight into the reverence of fathers and sons, and Ryan Coogler, who clearly has a special relationship with his dad when it comes to the time they shared watching Rocky movies together. And so Ryan Coogler's the winner. I mean, his career blows up after this. Well, first of all, they get to do another Creed, and then there's another Creed on the way.
That Creed I'm actually really looking forward to.
Oh, it looks amazing.
Because I'm rooting for Kang.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Look, Jonathan Majors is amazing. And listen, I liked Creed 2. Like, we're not here to talk about Creed 2. You haven't seen Creed 2.
I haven't seen Creed 2.
It's a fun, for anyone who loved Rocky 4, it's fun, but it's not as good as this movie. But it's a fun aside. But it's enough of a step down from this movie that I thought, I'm not really interested in a Rocky 3 until I saw that Jonathan Majors was in it. And now you pull me back in. I'm here for it. Just like old Rocky, man. Like, listen, who was really excited about seeing him fight the Russians when you were just seeing trailers of it? But man, they pull you back in.
They do.
Like, what? No Mr. T? No Clubber Lang? The winner of the movie for me is Ryan Coogler, although Tessa Thompson is a close second.
She's great.
Yeah. The Go Get 'Em Next Time award. Who's the loser of the movie?
Okay, I got 2 again.
All right.
And you're going to be flabbergasted by my 2.
Oh, boy.
Michael B. Jordan.
Oh,
at times, like, I don't believe his character. Like, he doesn't, like, there's times where his emotional depth is great, and then there's times that I feel it's off.
Yeah, is he a little one-dimensional? Let's talk about Michael B. Jordan's acting talent. Are you convinced?
He's like an every other movie guy for me. Like, I like him about every other movie, and
he's great as Killmonger in Black Panther.
Like when he's like, "Hi, Auntie," I'm like, "Yeah, you get sassy."
Yeah. I'm strangely with you on this.
So like, he's kind of, since he's the main character, I mean, his flaws are like exasperated. They're pointed out a lot bigger.
Before you move on, are you about to move on?
I was going to tell you part 2.
Let me just add this on with Michael B. Jordan, because I'm going to back you up here.
This is a rarity.
I wouldn't have noticed it, but every scene he's in with Tessa Thompson, boy, it seems like there's a gap there. Mm-hmm. She is so grounded and believable in that role. And even with Sylvester Stallone, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm on the Michael B. Jordan train fully. I think he's good enough in the movie. He's adequate.
Yeah.
But I don't know that he's like, some people would be like, oh, he's the next Denzel. No, I don't think so, bro.
Oh, I would never go that far.
Yeah.
Okay, part 2. Ryan Coogler, the scriptwriter. I told you where.
I'm not with you on this one, bro.
Okay,
he wrote the thing in college. He wrote a better script in college than most professional screenwriters write.
Probably. But we have to get some conflict between him and Rocky. It doesn't work. And it's a vital, pivotal point. And so if he's not responsible for that scene, then I chalk it up to Sylvester Stallone, the writer, or whoever wrote it, because there's 3 other people listed.
Yeah, I would be interested to know who's responsible for what, because Sylvester Stallone is listed as a writer.
And so how we get that scene, or whoever is responsible for editing out and piecing together this film, that scene could have been lost to the sands of time.
Yeah, because I'd be really interested. Because, first of all, if Sylvester Stallone makes a suggestion, Ryan Coogler, who's getting an incredible lucky break because of fan fiction he wrote in college, is not going to say no, even if he thinks in his head, yeah, I don't dig that.
So, again, I don't know who did it, but it's potentially Ryan Coogler, the screenwriter.
Let's not forget that Sylvester Stallone has a screenwriting Oscar for Rocky.
He does.
Yeah.
This
dude's an Oscar winner for screenwriting.
I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just saying that's the losing part of the film, as it's the worst part of the film.
I cannot fully object to that. It's incomplete. The go get him next time award for me, the loser of this movie is Rocky 5. Because Rocky 5 is officially dead and buried with this movie. We can put the dirt on top of it. It's gone. Forget about it. It never happened.
And
Rocky Balboa is just collateral damage. Because I didn't hate that movie, but it's gone too. Except for the great speech that he says to his kid.
Yeah, no, I'm good without Rocky Balboa, and Rocky 5 does exist.
All right. Bottom line question, Cody. Does this movie amend the canon for you and continue the legacy? Is it worthy of continuing the legacy of Rocky?
So it's a good story, and at times I definitely get the Rocky vibes. Like, yeah, I could watch this on a Saturday morning, like in a marathon, and be great with it. Again, with Rocky 5 existing, I almost feel that you probably could have told a significant portion of the story without Rocky being there, but with it being a grief story, you do need Rocky there. So they could have done something different with the character of Adonis, and then like had a brief cameo by Rocky, who is a fragile old man that can barely talk. So it's acceptable, and I'm good with them carrying on a franchise.
Yeah. You know, and it's weird because we have hindsight now, because there's been another movie, there's been a Creed 2, they're coming out with a Creed 3. And so obviously I'm way more comfortable at amending the canon in my head. I'm perfectly fine with saying, you know what? Rocky 5, already forgotten. It never happened. In my brain, it's gone. Tommy Morrison, that guy doesn't exist. He's not a real dude.
Rest in peace.
So, like, for me, not a problem to amend it. And I think, like, Creed, when it comes out, this movie, when it comes out, I feel like it's better than it has any right to being. Because even though I love the Rocky movies, after the first Rocky, which is a worthy, like, Oscar candidate, they're all just popcorn flicks after that, which means they're not looking for cinema greatness. They're just giving you something that you could love for a couple hours. You lose yourself in the story of Rocky, right? Because the sequels are all kind of goofy and silly in some ways. And this kind of continues that because, like, look, I think a lot of the legacy's up to this third Creed movie. If this third Creed movie is junk, then we can kind of be like, well, yeah, it doesn't quite live up. but I'm willing to give it the chance. If this movie comes out and rocks, then you look at the 3 Creed movies and say, hey, you know what? It carries on the fun popcorn flick vibe.
Okay.
Even though this movie wrestles with far deeper themes than most of the Rocky sequels.
I'll agree.
Yeah. All right. What did you guys think?
Oh, I have to give my rating.
Oh, you're going to give a rating?
I'm going to
We
tell
don't
you-
usually do that with the
I know, but I'm going to tell you where it ranks within the Rocky franchise.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, give me your ranking of the Rocky movies.
Okay, so I'm really partial to 4. So Rocky 4 gets bumped up to the top, but like just a slight
Somewhere Survivor's like, in the burning hot, just about to burst.
So just a slight notch below it, just a slight notch, not that much of a notch, is Rocky 1. Rocky 1 is amazing. Love Rocky 1.
Yeah.
So 4, 1, and then it's
We gotta go 3 next, right?
I put this one
Or you put Creed.
in the arena of 3.
Okay.
Like it'll depend on my day.
Yeah. All right.
So like I didn't hate it, but there was definitely parts I didn't fully appreciate. And there were parts I really liked, and especially the fight sequences. And yeah, so yeah, it's in my top 3 or 4 of Rocky franchise films without having seen Creed 2.
You're being awfully fair. Good for you. I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, Cody. I loved it. It's one Rocky 4 is all-time favorite. Doesn't matter. Cinema, is it great cinema? No.
It is phenomenal.
But it's just so much fun. So Rocky 4 is the all-time great always for an 80s kid for sure. And then I would consider a handful of them. Rocky 1, Rocky 3, and this movie.
Balboa being the lowest just because 5 exists, and
No.
there's no way we can get to Balboa.
Nothing can be lower than Rocky 5. It's the worst movie, maybe one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Oh, I've seen some really awful ones.
Yeah. I'm not going to complain. Hey, how did you all like Creed? Was this a movie you loved instantly? Have you not seen it? You should go watch it. Tell us what you think about the movie Creed, the subsequent legacy of Rocky. We'd really love to hear what you think. Next week, stay tuned because the Wakanda review, the Wakanda Forever review is what we're on next week.
No Tony Danza next week.
And Tony Danza will not appear in Wakanda Forever. So we look forward to having you again. Listen, and remember, it's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
That's how it's done.
Too much? Yeah. Too much. All right. Everyone have a great week. We'll see you next time.